Hey, I'm Ben Silverio.
And I'm Erin Cline.
And I'm Ansel Birch, your host in post.
And it's time to party.
We are not doctors and we don't give medical advice. Please drink responsibly.
They're going thousands of miles per hour.
It's not the speed of light, but I guess it's close enough.
Oh, man. If you are just joining us, we're about to talk about the ridiculous movie Beyond the Time Barrier.
From 1960, this is available on Prime for free. You should definitely watch it. It is only 75 minutes
true.
long.
That's the saving
really
grace.
Clear about that. As we discussed in the first episode, Ben did not like this movie. I loved it, was delighted by it. So this should be an interesting discussion.
Oh, yes. If you have not seen this movie, which I can almost guarantee you haven't,
for real.
Yeah. Before now. Before we gave you the
Yes.
homework to watch it.
Yes, if you have not watched along already and played our drinking and smoking game, well, here you are. Dropping in on this kerfuffle.
Oh, yes. If you're going to watch this, you're going to need the booze and the weed and whatever else.
A sunny disposition.
Yeah, there you go.
I enjoyed it sober. I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, we should start at the
Ben.
top, right?
Yeah, let's start at the top.
All right. The first note that I made was you can time travel by taking sharp turns
At high speed.
at high speeds.
At high speed. I appreciated a lot that they took the time to give us the fake math. I really needed them to put this on a chalkboard and show me what was happening and what they're trying to do so that when he went through the time barrier and got to the other side and the other pilots could explain to him, like, so you remember that chalkboard that we looked at earlier in the movie? Here's another chalkboard where we'll talk about how we got here. Like, I appreciated that because it was really confusing. It was like, wait, what the fuck? How did you get over here? They explain later it's because he hit terminal velocity, which is interpreted by the time barrier as being close enough to the speed of light. That was unclear. They did not really explain why that happened. But yes, if you hit terminal velocity while you're going in a circle around the Earth, you can time travel.
Because the Earth
the
is
galaxy's
very
moving
fast.
too.
Yes, because the galaxy is moving, and so you're like, you got like pulled by the galaxy, but you're like still in like inner space, kind of. So you get sucked into 2024. I don't know.
It's a big stretch.
There's a lot going on.
Real stretch.
I appreciated that they gave us like the timey-wimey music, so you were like, ooh, something's happening. Again, the score on this is just, it's really for the audience to understand what's happening. That's what it feels like the whole time. The score is like, pay attention, and you're like, I am. And then it's like, something bad's gonna happen, and you're like, oh, it is. That's the whole movie.
Man, like it when they were trying to explain it, I just remember looking over at Warwick and his face was similar to my face when we were just like, what? Oh, okay. We're here now. I guess. It's like that it's like that one meme with the angry looking guy and then throwing his hands up like, I guess. I guess that's how that works.
Oh my god. Okay, so since I liked it and you didn't, let's start with the things that you don't like about this movie. Like, obviously it's weird, and obviously like the plot is very strange and the time travel is like hard to comprehend. What else don't you like about it?
I think the main things that kept me constantly saying, what the fuck, are the little details. You know, because when you look at the story, according to IMDb, the synopsis, repeating this in case you didn't hear in the first episode, in 1960, a military test pilot is caught in a time warp that propels him to the year 2024, where he finds a plague has sterilized the world's population. That's a good enough plot. to like get you through a B movie. But like there are so many little details that are just like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Why are you doing that? Like, for a society that has lived with being deaf and mute for so long, how don't they have a better form of communication than nodding your head?
Nobody can communicate with each other. There's like, some people have photographs, but it doesn't appear like really anybody has photographs except for Tyranny, the deaf lady. Her name was confusing.
Yes,
I was like, I don't understand what you're trying to call this woman.
On IMDb, they call her a princess. Princess Tyranny.
Yeah, Princess Tyranny.
And I'm like, she was a princess?
I mean,
because she's... Yeah, it kind of makes sense. She's like... Her grandfather is like the commander who's the one who's left, and everyone lives in this underground base, and so that's all the humans that are left, and so since she's the only fertile one, or the only one who is hypothetically fertile, I guess. They keep saying that she's fertile. I'm just gonna assume she gets her period. There's no other reason to know that she's fertile, and so it must be that. Like, that must be why. So I guess the second you get your period, you become a princess in 2024 in this underground bunker town.
Well, she's also What's-Her-Bucket's daughter, right?
Yeah, the like governing
the
general.
Supreme.
The Supreme is her grandfather.
Yeah,
it's her grandfather. Yeah,
but also the Supreme and the Captain are the only ones that can talk.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like,
it was also unclear why they could talk and nobody else. Like, the Supreme, it made a little more sense because he was like, I remember, I was just old enough to be around when it was the before times and before the plague. So, like, him, I understand. Right. They do say, actually, you know what? They do say at one point, I wrote this down, it's not that, like, it's not just that the mutants are the only ones who are infected, it's that everybody is infected, and so it must be that the Supreme and the Captain are just at earlier stages right, of their infection, so that they can still communicate. But like, why that is never explained.
Yeah, Captain Grumpy McBeardface is just real angry about stuff, and
dude, he loves to pick a fight. Yeah. That man is like, I am ready to beat the shit out of anybody. I'm the only one who can talk. I'm so tired of these deaf people.
Yeah,
give me half a reason. That's all I need.
Yeah, exactly. He walks into a room and it's just like, time to punch some people in the face. Like, okay, bro, you do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, and then the mutants, even though they're all some kind of mutant, like, they're just in this pit of despair. Like, I don't know. They didn't really give a good reason why they're just corralling these mutants. Maybe these are the ones that broke in, tried to attack.
I honestly think it's because they're ugly.
Yeah.
They like mention at one point, like, because they look this way, that's why they're in here. So it's funny that you say that is one of the things you didn't like. I liked that because it felt very much like a class system. It feels very much like a commentary on, like, all of these people are sick.
Yeah.
Everybody here is infected, but these are the ones that we don't like, and so we just like shove them over here and we let these like well-behaved people kind of do whatever they want. I liked that inside of a 1960s movie. That felt like really on the nose for a movie made at that time too, which I think made me appreciate it more.
These are the people that didn't follow the guidelines for a plague.
These ones didn't wear their masks.
For real. Like,
I think maybe that's what contributed to me not liking this movie a whole lot also, is that, like, oh, hey, in the year 2024, there's a plague still that sterilizes the world. And I'm just like, oh, that's a fun thought.
Well, a plague that happened in the I wrote it down I wrote down the year. They said it at one point. 1971 is when it happened. Okay. Yeah, is when the plague happens because of cosmic radiation and cosmic dust falling, which is what causes everybody to get sick. And then, like, only these people are the ones who survived, or their mutated genes allowed them to be alive still. So I found that really interesting. The thing that I really liked about that, too, in that explanation, is they said that they had already gone to Mars and Venus by 1961.
Yeah, that's wild.
It is wild that people in the 60s were like, yeah, we're going to go to the moon and then we're going to actually continue to do space travel. Like, oh, the optimism. Yes. I can't imagine what it must be like to live in a society where you're like, they're really going to do it. We're really going to go to Mars. And like watching a movie like this where they're like, yeah, we went to Mars and we went to Venus. Hello, been there, done that. Like, that's the other idea too, right? Is that they they evacuated everyone from the planet who wasn't a mutant, and so they're all living now on the Mars and Venus colonies too. So like the plot is interesting and has a lot of like really interesting structures to it, and the like overall nature of the plot I found really fascinating. But you're right that there's like a lot of weird little stuff that's just like thrown in, like, why is this in here? Like, what is this?
They did some good world building that they did not act on.
Yes, exactly.
They did excellent world building.
And one of the things that you mentioned previously was that you liked the spontaneous fighting. But like the actual fighting that occurred seemed very like two grade schoolers slapping each other, like bad hugging.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure at one point Out Loud Work said did they even have a fight coordinator, just because it was like,
honestly, probably not.
It was the same 4 stunt dudes.
Yeah, they had a couple of I think they were from the Air Force, because this is shot on an Air Force base in Texas. I think there were a couple of guys from the Air Force who came in and like did all of the stunts for this too. So I probably not. I don't think they probably had one. That's, I think, part of it too. I liked a lot of the fights because I felt like they felt real. It felt like when you have a choreographed fight, yeah, you get all this like, woo, we're gonna punch, and then I'm gonna throw you over the chair, and then we're doing this. And like when you actually fight someone, it's a lot of grabbing people by the collar and just like trying to punch someone and like
throwing them on the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And so I felt like I appreciated these fights in that sense. Like, if this was made today, the fights would have been obviously much better and done like professionally. Yeah. But it felt like this movie only cost $125K to make, and like it feels that way. But it also feels like they really made the most out of the money that they had doing it, with not having real stunt people. Yeah. Like, I thought they did a fine job with the stunts, though I agree a lot of them were funny. Like, that's, again, I think because I just embraced at the beginning, like, this is going to be delightful and weird, like the weird fights really did it for me.
Yeah, it's weird because I'm not typically super cynical about movies. You know, I usually go into stuff.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm like surprised that you didn't enjoy this.
Yeah, I usually go into stuff like, you know, enjoying campiness. And I mean, hell, all the musicals that we enjoy are real campy, right, and fun, but I don't know, something about this movie. It might have been the endless amount of snow we've been getting, the lack of sunlight, the
makes us feel like we too are living in a Cold War.
Yeah,
I agree.
You know, but also like the whole we are also living through a plague. So I don't know. That might have gotten me down a little bit on this, but like, afterwards, I was thinking, like, even though I may not have enjoyed the execution, this movie is ripe for a remake.
Oh, so much.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah. Yes.
It has everything that you could use to make an interesting sci-fi movie now.
Yes, I completely agree. You could take this terrible script, make very little edits, and, like, honestly just make it, like, almost exactly shot for shot, and just do it better, and it would be a fucking great movie.
Right. Like, things
and
to work on.
And it'd be cheap to do today.
Would be very cheap to do.
So cheap. It would be so cheap to make this.
Yeah, I mean, it just improve on their form of communication, improve on the literal worst bald caps I've ever seen.
Oh my god, the worst bald caps!
They're real bad!
Oh my god, the mutants in the pit when they're like sitting on the stairs, I was like, wow, these are something fucking else. I appreciated that it was in black and white. I bet that it looked better because it was in black and white as opposed to seeing that in color. But like seeing the mutants, I think the idea... Here's a question for you. If you remade it today, would you make it in black and white or would you make it in color?
Ooh.
I would probably reverse Wizard of Oz it.
Ooh.
Start in color and then black and white.
Ooh, I like that. That's a good answer.
Because like they talk about it being kind of like a different timeline, you know? So maybe this timeline is more retro-futuristic, you know? I would probably leave out that the future of clothing is regular clothes with chunky belts, but you know, like...
Only some people get the chunky belt, though.
Only some people get the chunky belt. One of the things that I really love about this movie is that it's so clear that Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, the original series, watched this movie and just heavily fucking lifted from it. Like, there's so much in this movie that is also in Star Trek the original series, and one of those things is the clothing that they wear. So like the like triangle cut short skirts with the long sleeves and the emblems at the bottom of the sleeves, Star Trek. That's just straight up Star Trek movie. And so watching it, I found it delightful that, like, oh my god, I can see how this movie that I've never heard of had an enormous impact on something that became a cultural phenomenon. And so, like, I think part of what makes me like this a lot is that, like we've been saying, the structure and the like ideas behind it are so strong that when they're transferred to other pieces of media, they stand out as high points, even though in this they might feel weird. So that's my counter for the clothing. There are things about the clothing I really liked, knowing that they clearly influenced other pieces of clothing from sci-fi in the future.
Yeah. Okay, I can get behind that. Another point of contention that I had was that it didn't really take much convincing to get Tyranny on board. Like,
listen.
Like, I know she was a little thirsty, but
a little. No.
Girl's been waiting for anybody.
Literally anybody. She's the only person who can, like, have sex and have a child, and she's been told that's her destiny. I literally wrote down at one point, one of my notes is this girl normal horny or creepy horny? Oh, creepy horny.
Creepy
And
horny.
that's exactly what it is. This woman, like, immediately falls in love with him, is like, I will literally sacrifice myself and everyone that I've ever known and loved because this dude with a working dick wants to leave, basically, and that's it.
A working dick, and the only dude in the future, apparently, who doesn't have, like, weird facial hair. Like, everyone else that isn't related to her in this citadel has weird facial hair.
It's super weird facial hair. Yes, that's 2024, baby. Honestly, holds up.
Yeah.
2024, looking around at people, I bet a lot of that facial hair is going to be like, oh yeah, totally. That's absolutely.
Oh yeah, Grumpy McPointy-Beard is coming back. He will live again.
That's right. That pointy beard, it's coming back. How did you feel about the sets?
I liked the sets. They might be one of the high points of the film. You know, the triangle motif was a very interesting theme to go with. But the doors really bothered me because the triangles were not tall enough for most of the people in the Citadel. So who was building these doors that are really low to the ground? Like, I
mean, that's government infrastructure. That's someone who was like, it's cheap and we can build it easily and it looks kind of nice. And then everyone's like, this is way too small for humans. And they're like, deal with it.
Can we talk about how Triony's bedroom has a door on one side and just an open curtain if you walk around?
Yeah. It's not like, and they're underground. So, like, what? There's a lot of
Why is there
open
a pool
windows.
underground?
Yeah.
Why does she have, like, an open air pool underground? Not explained at any point.
Also, it was very validating to see that in these bedrooms, they figure out in the future that bed frames are a scam.
Yes. Yes.
They just have big headboards, but no bed frames.
Right? Exactly. And they're like, this bed is fine. Just put it on, like, a big-ass box spring. And you're like, you know
That's
what?
all you need.
You're right.
And a platform. Make sure it's on a raised platform so that if people want to watch
exactly.
you, they can. There's
exactly.
amphitheater seating. For a second there, I legit was like, oh, are they all going to watch them?
I thought so, too.
How sexy does this movie get? Does this...
I know. I was like, this has an NR rating, which means it's not rated, which means anything can fucking happen. I was just like, okay, here we go. Is this gonna be like old school England where they watch them copulate? Like, I don't know, maybe.
Okay, we need to see if his dick really does work.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, is anything coming out? Anybody who can see?
We also gotta be like, are we just all doing it wrong? Let's see if maybe he's got tips.
It's supposed to be hard.
Oh, guys.
Oh my god, guys. Everyone runs out.
Wait, what's
We were just rubbing it on her boobs.
I mean, it makes sense, 1970. I bet there wasn't good sex education. Everyone who survived past was like, I don't know. The birds came and they gave us a baby.
That's what Mom said.
That's what it is. They see Allison come in on this flight, and they're like, "It's a big bird. He's the one with the bird. That's why he's the one who will get her pregnant."
That's baby guy.
But that guy knows where babies come from. Just tell him we're sterile, and maybe he'll show us.
Oh, man. Like, now that we're on the topic of Allison, he's a dick. Like,
He's such a dick.
Like, one of the things I wrote down, like, while he was talking to the Supreme, he was just like, I value my freedom more than this. And he's trying to be like, dude, there's a plague. Like, there's a plague on people. Like,
surprisingly timely movie.
Oh, so timely.
It's shocking how well it held up in many ways that probably felt outlandish in 1960.
Yeah.
Weirdly prescient. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's what added to my frustration with this movie too, because it's just like, oh, there's so many people out there like Allison who don't give a shit.
Yes, 100%.
No, we're all dying though. Yeah, I don't care about that. That sounds like a not my problem.
Right.
Yeah. That sounds like a you problem and not a my freedom problem. Like, no, it's a you problem too.
Beyond the Time Barrier, starring Gina Carano.
Oh.
For future reference, that's a timely reference right now.
If you hopefully have forgotten who that is entirely, don't look it up.
Right? If you forgot, good for you.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, man.
You'll probably enjoy this movie.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can just let things go and escape from your memory, then you too will enjoy Beyond the Time Barrier.
It's a thought that I had while watching the movie. It technically doesn't pass the Bechdel test because there's only one woman that can talk in the whole movie.
That's true.
I don't even think you have to put technically in there, even if she could talk, that this would not have passed the Bechdel test.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because anytime
she is all about that dick.
Yeah, exactly. That woman becomes centrally focused on it. Like, he is introduced and her grandfather's like, you will mate with this man, and she's like, I will mate with this man. That's her whole deal. Whereas the Russian lady pilot is like, I'm a lady pilot. I'm very smart and capable and can do lots of, like, I liked her. I thought that she was a great character. Like, those other scientists I found really interesting. And at that point, too, it had been so long in a 75-minute movie. It felt like a really long time since we had heard other people speak, too. And so I felt like I appreciated them even more. And I like that they were ambiguous, too. It is really unclear, like, are they really trying to get him off of this planet? Are they going to sabotage him at the end? Like, they did sort of try to sabotage him, but then at the same time they did help him leave. Like, I liked that they felt very complicated. We don't really get an answer, I believe, either about exactly how long they have been there. Like, it's they arrived there in similar ways by slipping through this time barrier, but they don't tell us, like, oh yeah, I've definitely been here for this amount of time. I'm from this year. But that doesn't tell us, like, oh, I've been here for 8 years, or I've only been here a couple of months. Like, that's really unclear. I think that helps add to the ambiguous nature of their characters, too. You don't really get a sense of their urgency about what exactly they want.
Yeah, those are definitely the good things about, Captain Markova, General Cruz, and
the other guy.
Borman. Yeah,
Borman,
Dr. Borman. Like, those are the interesting things about them, like, they were complex in a way that added some depth to the characters, but it's weird that all three of them, like the three of them being Borman, Cruz, and Markova, are from 3 different timelines, yet they're all drawn to this particular 2024 timeline when they took sharp turns in something. That was weird. And then once the resolution for Markova, Cruz, and Borman came up, it happened so quickly that you didn't really get a chance to really process it all, because it happened like one after the other after the other. It's like, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, and then again, and then again. Yeah. Like,
well, and it's important to note that this is before divergent timeline theory. Like, they are all from the same timeline. They're just from different points in that timeline. Because the only way the solution to this movie works is if, by going back and changing it, he's rewriting all of this. Like, none of this happens because of if he changes things in 1960.
Yeah, but
Yeah, 'cause-
at a certain point, I remember thinking, like, is Allison actually going to go back and change stuff? Like, he's kind of a dick, so he might just be worried about, like, when he said, like, I value my freedom more than this, like, he was being pretty selfish. So, like, would he have done that? And I mean, we see what happens to him, like, and what he
Also,
actually does.
Can he?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that he can.
Yeah.
And I like that at the end they kind of implied, like, we have a lot to think
Exactly.
about. Like, that's what they literally say. Not like we're gonna do something to prevent
Yep.
this. Like, we have a lot to think about. And like, is that why they go to Mars and Venus? Is because these men are already aware that this is coming, and so they're trying to set up these off-world sites, and like, is it cyclical? We have no idea. That is never answered for us.
Right.
And I like that it's open-ended at the
Yes.
end, that like, did he actually change it? Or is he the one that set in motion the things that prepared the planet for who could escape?
Yeah.
Like, we don't know. We never get an answer.
Right.
'Cause
Again, interesting
isn't
idea, not a great execution overall.
Isn't the atom bomb the inciting incident?
They said that it was because of cosmic radiation or cosmic rays that came from the sun. I'm not sure if it was the atom bomb or the combination of both the atom bomb coming off and them getting hit with the cosmic radiation. I was unclear about what exactly caused it.
I think Allison thought that the plague might have been caused by nuclear warfare, and then the scientists were like, no, actually, it turned out to be this thing that vaguely sounds like global warming.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, because I made some notes about it that it was cosmic radiation and cosmic dust that they thought was the atom bomb because of the explosions, but actually was because of something that came off of the sun. And so I think you're right that it was something like global warming that caused the planet to do whatever, and then we got this plague. I don't know, kind of like what's happening today. Weird.
Yeah, right.
Ugh.
Not that I'm
Anyway, I'm sure it's fine.
yeah. Not that I'm clamoring for more plague media, but if someone who writes for Star Trek or the Orville or something wants to remake this movie, I think they could do it in a pretty good way.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I was saying before, there's clearly a lot of imagery that Gene Roddenberry took for Star Trek the original series.
Mhm.
Like,
Whole
there-
cloth, yeah.
my favorite moment in Star Trek the original series is when Bones accidentally gets hit with that like adrenaline shot, and then they're yeeting through the time rock, and he comes out and he's like, concrete. I love the way that concrete looks. Like the setup at the beginning when Allison is going from the runway in the future before he gets darted down and taken into the underground cave layer that everyone lives in, that imagery looks very similar to that episode. That's part of what originally made me think, like, damn, this is really similar to Star Trek. And then as the movie continues on, it's like, that's really similar, and that's really similar, and that's really similar. Like, that was my first click of it, and I think that's part of what made me like appreciate the way that the scenery looked. That's what we were talking about. We were talking about the scenery.
There we go. We got back to it. See?
That's right. It was triangle doors. That's how we got here.
Yes. Yes.
You know what was funny? The progression of movies like that Warwick and I watched the night that we watched this, because we went from Triangle Doors to Super Troopers, and then in Super Troopers 2 they talk about triangulation, and I'm like, we got back there.
It's all related. The movies, they love the triangles.
So, Erin, do you think
Yes.
that Beyond the Time Barrier stands the test of time?
You know, I think that it does. I think you need to go into it with the idea that it is really silly and it is kind of dumb, and there are things about it that like don't make sense, but also like it was 1960, and for 1960 I feel like this super holds up. Like if you asked me to guess when this movie was made, if I knew nothing about it, I probably would have guessed later in the 70s, because it feels a little more like it doesn't feel as dated by time as I would think a movie like this from 1960 would feel. So yeah, I think it does. I think that this holds up and stands the test of time, especially in ways that I just wasn't expecting, which I think made me like it more.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you think that it stands the test of time, Ben, who hated this fucking movie?
So on my Letterboxd, I gave this movie a 1.5 stars.
Oh my
out
god!
of 5. So
Wow. Okay,
I mean,
that's way lower than I would have.
it's not. I didn't think it was a great movie, but it has good bones. Like,
Yes, it does have good bones.
yeah, like you could do something with this now that would be very interesting. But back then, I don't know. Again, it could have just been I'm feeling cynical about stuff because you know, I don't want to watch stuff about a plague right now.
Fair enough. Surprise! I picked a movie about a plague. Oops.
My bad. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. This was a real weird one for me. So yeah, I don't know.
All right.
The drinking game might help it a lot.
Yeah. Fair. That's fair. I was very high when I watched this movie, and I really enjoyed it. So, you know, take that for what you will.
There you go. All
right.
Yeah, that's our second episode. And apparently our third one is going to be even crazier.
Oh, crazy! We're going to get into how this movie was made and why it is the way that it is in episode 3, just as a, you know, come on over. I'm really excited to talk about it.
Are we going to talk about the mutant pit?
I don't specifically have the mutant pit written down, but I like the mutant pit. I thought the mutant pit was really just as like a tag onto the end of this. I thought it was really interesting that you got to see the mutant pit from like the studio lot version of like, here's the stairs and here's the gate. And then they swing around and show it. And it's like, here's this very expansive place that all of these people are living. And like, they're not crowded together. It's not really a pit. It's just like, here's the exile land. Like, it's a much more extensive than they make you believe. And then when you swing around, you're like, damn, this is like a Spartacus shot. Like, it's a huge, huge shot full of like, not that many people.
Yeah,
With very different costuming and character design.
Yes, totally. It was like, what is this? Like, there were a couple of shots of them like running too down the halls during those later scenes where, like you said earlier about it feeling like a different movie sometimes, like that especially felt like it to me. It was like, what B-roll did you take this from that you were like, we can build the rest of the movie around this? Like, sometimes it definitely felt like
for
that.
a minute when they first showed the pit, I thought it was the dungeon from Man of La Mancha, when Cervantes is just like in the dungeon before he starts telling the story. And like that shot reminded me of like that movie. And then when they showed that weird lamp thing that was like spinning in a weird way at the top of the pit, I'm like, this is very impractical and awkward. Like, what is this light in the future?
It's just
It's
a
so that you don't
Fresnel.
trip.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't trip while you're coming up the stairs so that you can beg for freedom or whatever. I don't know.
It only oscillates like in this very short window, and it's very impractical. I don't know. Do better with your lighting fixtures, future.
For the pit.
The pit deserves good enough lighting.
Freedom for the pit. It was very satisfying when the pit escaped. I was like, fuck yeah, get out of there, pit.
That's true.
By that time, you know everyone's infected too, so it's like, really, why are these people in the pit? Just because they're ugly? Yeah, get out there and fuck that space station up.
Yeah.
Not space station. Cave station? I don't know.
Citadel.
Oh man, there's
The Citadel.
there's an entire IMDb section of goofs on this movie.
Oh, really?
Yes!
Oh yeah.
There's some boom shots. There's a bunch of, like, not great camera work that comes with this. Yes.
Oh, man. Apparently there was another movie that was shot at the same time in the same location.
Yes.
Oh. That probably saved money.
Yeah, it was a... I was going to talk about this in the third episode, but I'll mention it now. Yeah, the reason this movie is so short is because it's actually a double feature.
Oh.
I wrote down the name. It's the Angry Red Planet. It was shot at the same time on this Air Force base, and then they were released as a double feature, so that actually it's like a 2.5 hour long double bill.
Oh, interesting.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I don't know which one comes first. I don't know if this is the first movie and then the Angry Red Planet is the second one. I'm not sure. That I could not find information about.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, since we've already started talking about the third episode, we might as well get there. So
yeah, let's get there. Anyway, see you next week, everybody.
Yeah, enjoy Monday.
Right? If you want to join in on the conversation about Beyond the Time Barrier, you can find us on the internet on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at bsilverio20.
I'm at NYD on Instagram.
I'm at Indecisionist on Twitter and The Indecisionist on Instagram. Special thanks to April Moralba for our podcast art, and to Marlon Longett of Marlon the Shakes for our amazing music.
And you can hashtag time2party, that's the number 2, on either of those platforms, and share how ridiculous
Interact
you
with
think
us.
this movie is.
Yeah, tell us, did you like this movie? What are you, Team Erin or Team Ben? Where did you fall here?
Yeah. Be excellent to each other.
Party on, dudes. Air Guitar Underground.
I'm playing air bass now. I don't know. When did that happen?